this is the most important left unity project Scotland has seen in a generation. Not since the Scottish Socialist Alliance was established in 1998 has such a diverse array of left opinion come together in this way. And since we last met here in this very hotel room as the Radical Independence Campaign, Scotland has changed beyond all recognition. And we here, who were so involved in the Yes movement, should be immensely proud of what we achieved and what we changed, even though ultimately the vote went against us. And yet for all that has changed politically, far, far, far too little has changed socially and economically as far as the improvements secured by working class people in Scotland are concerned. We face greater exploitation at work. We face public services that continue to face the threat of privatisation and are downgraded. We face inequalities that are widening as the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And the vulnerable in our society, the sick, the elderly, the very young alike, are often left behind, disregarded by a system that is no use for them. And it struck me today, in my thoughts preparing for this launch event, that politically it seems to me the illusions in capitalism appear more and more entrenched on the face of it. And yet beneath that, the discontent with its features are more and more widespread. And reflecting both these phenomena is the Scottish National Party, which has supplanted Labour in this great political change here in Scotland. And I wanted to say that I've spent the week proudly and on your behalf on the picket line with our brothers and sisters for the Public and Commercial Services Union at the National Museum of Scotland. And I'm delighted not only that we have Alex who's speaking on their behalf, but we have some of his colleagues here in the audience with us today, because for me that sends the clear signals that ideas are important and we're going to celebrate and discuss and develop them today. But as the famous philosopher Karl Marx says and is engraved on his tombstone, philosophers have interpreted the world. Ideas are important. Philosophers have interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. And what Rise will marry is the ideas that we have to present to the people of Scotland, married to action and activity, and standing in solidarity with those men and women in Scotland at the forefront of the class struggle, fighting against the egregious attacks on them by their employers. And Alex will, I'm sure, in a second give you the details of the strike. I don't want to say too much about it. But management at Scotland's National Museum say that they have no alternative but to cut the wages of the lowest staff who work there. Strange management, aren't they? There's always no alternative but to cut the wages of the poorest members of staff. Heaven forfend the senior management should take a cut in their vast salaries. That never seems to occur to them in the business management schools of Harvard or Edinburgh University or elsewhere. So I think it's right that Rise is about supporting actively working class people in struggle. And Rise is an important ingredient in maximising the strength of the ongoing independence movement. And we want to make it absolutely clear to those who don't know it already that the independence movement does not belong to the SNP. It is not Nicola's plaything. And we reiterate here today that supporting Scotland's democratic right to self-determination does not make you a Scottish nationalist. It makes you a Democrat, and that's the power behind it. And in the publicity that we've managed to gather for today's launch event, John and the media team that have pulled things together managed to get that rare achievement where we had David Torrance, that right-wing commentator, in the Herald, even plugging today's event. We had the Sunday Herald who are here covering it last Sunday. We had mentions in the Herald and the Scotsman. Some of them, I have to say, with the honourable exception, of course, of Cat, who had a column in the National. Again, I'm sure you all read it. With the honourable exception of Cat and others. There has been a tendency to trivialise here. But of course, within it all, there's many great gems of truth, and in David Torrance is that illustration of the idea that even right-wing Tories like David Torrance are not wrong all the time. Because in his article, I thought he made an important point. He said, the Scottish National Party share the contemporary trait of seeking to claim a radical mantle while advocating pretty orthodox centrist policies, adding that a gap has always existed between the SNP's rhetoric and its record in government. And perhaps the most telling quote of the article, if the SNP or Labour were genuinely left-wing, Rise would not need to exist. Too true, David Torrance, too true. I want to mention something, because today will hopefully be a day where you read, buy the books and material in the stalls outside and enjoy yourself. I came across an absolutely astonishing, remarkable, lovely essay when I was rereading the red paper on Scotland that was written in 1975 by that august former socialist Gordon Brown. I nearly said the late Gordon Brown, because he's only late as far as he used to be a socialist is concerned. But he wrote the red paper in Scotland. I have to say it's largely forgettable. But there's a chapter in it written by a man called Ray Burnett. And I read it 3 or 4 weeks ago. Socialist in the SNP. It was written in 1975 when the SNP had their previous highest number of MPs in Westminster at 13. And it's a fantastic piece of advice for the socialist movement. And I have managed to take the essay, get it covered, and you can buy it in a pamphlet at the SSP stall next door. I had hoped that Ray Burnett was going to be here with us today, but I think somebody told me he's already heading up the West Highland Way, so he's probably in front of Alan at this stage. But it's a remarkable pamphlet that's well worth reading, because in it he makes the point that the Scottish National Party are not socialists. And to be fair to them, they've never claimed to be. The Scottish National Party are social democrats. And for the workers' movement throughout the world, there's a very important difference that we've learned many different occasions. And although the Scottish National Party are omnipotent at the moment and winning apparently every by-election in Hollywood opinion polls, in my view this is temporary, because there are enormous illusions in the SNP by political novices and people who really should know better. Rise intends to be the main opposition to the SNP in Scotland. We intend to be the left opposition, for those who can remember that original phrase. We intend to be sending a message. This is the place for socialists to gather in Scotland. This is where we will fight to achieve an independent socialist Scotland, a modern democratic republic. We're going to be fighting the Holyrood elections next year, and of course those elections will be fought, inevitably and rightly, on the record of the SNP at Holyrood in the last 10 years. And of course it's inevitable. People will critique that, defend it, criticise it, and that will be the mainstay of the election. I look at the record of the SNP at Holyrood in the last 10 years, and it reminds me very much of the managerialism that Jack McConnell was famous for. Too little has changed. I came across an article in the Daily Record of all newspapers. I've seen it at the dentist. I don't usually buy the Daily Record. Not because I haven't got the 60 pence, because I'd rather spend it buying Ray Burnett's pamphlet. But in the article that was drawn to my attention was a profile on a housing scheme in Lanarkshire where I was born. I was born in Craigneuk in Motherwell, right next to what used to be the giant Ravenscraig Steelworks. And in that article, amongst many facts and figures and statistics made available to us, it pointed out that today, in 2015, a young boy like me, born in Craigneuk today, will live to 63 years of age. 63 years of age, and my grandfathers were both steelworkers, my grandpa Fox and my grandpa Mackin. My dad, for his sins, was an insurance agent with the Cooperative Insurance Society. And it got me to thinking, what a damn hard job it must be selling pensions in Craigneuk to people who are going to die 4 years before they mature. It seems to me one of the most difficult jobs that you'll come across in Scotland, but the reality is, in Scotland today, Craigneuk, where I was born, can be replicated 1,000 times over, and these communities have been left behind for the last 19 years or so in the Scottish Parliament. And those parties in power at Holyrood, Labour and the SNP, could have and should have done far, far more for working class communities around the rest of us. I really want to cover two things before I finish. First of all is to say that Jim Sillars would have been with us here today, but he's on holiday in Portugal and he sends us his warmest wishes and regards. And he's written a very important article that's in this edition, this copy of this edition of the Scottish Socialist Voice, where he argues that we need a second referendum on independence, and we need a mandate for that second referendum on independence. A mandate that we need to secure next year in Holyrood's elections in 2016. And it's a clever article, it's well written, and it's honest and fair, and tells us what we know, which is if there was to be another referendum today in Scotland, we would lose it. We would lose it again. And the independence movement cannot afford to lose two independence referendums. So we've got to have an independence referendum number 2 when we are confident that we'll win it. When we are confident that we've persuaded those who voted no the last time to vote yes this time. When we've got the time to build the same yes movement that so famously achieved what it achieved in the last 2 or 3 years. That's an article well worth reflecting on, and it's something we're going to reflect on and Rise today and in the months ahead. How we articulate the demand for a second referendum with a desire to win it that hasn't kicked it way into the long grass into the next decade of this century. That's a challenge for Rise, and one I'm looking forward to engaging. But Suki, the one thing I wanted to also comment, and perhaps indulge me, of course, the great talking point of the moment is that phenomenon of politics called Corbyn mania. And for me, I looked at this phenomenon with Jeremy Corbyn with the same astonishment that I think you do. I'll be astonished 2 weeks today when Jeremy Corbyn gets elected as the Labour leader, as I'm sure he's going to. I was in the picket line at the Museum of Scotland yesterday with Neil Finlay, who is part of Jeremy's campaign, who's understandably reluctant to say that Jeremy Corbyn is going to win, but all the evidence suggests that he's going to win. I think, I know Jeremy Corbyn, I'm a huge admirer of his, and I think if and when he does become the new Labour leader, then I think we should all raise a dram, as Jean said before, to the astonishing achievement of somebody that with 2 minutes to go didn't have enough nominees to go on the ballot paper. But what's happened in the course of the last 3 months, that in the hustings campaigns that he's done against the 3 other suits for New Labour, cardboard cutout, who give politics a really bad name, all 3 of them, is an astonishing achievement nonetheless. But I have to say, and I'm sure we all agree, I feel for Jeremy, because in 2 weeks' time I think his problems just begin. He has the support of 15 Labour MPs. Which means there are 265 Brutuses out there about to put a knife in his back the first opportunity they get. I've been a member of the Labour Party in the past. I can see the right wing of the Labour Party real. I know what they're like. And I think, when MPs are saying, I'll treat Jeremy, I'll be as loyal to Jeremy Corbyn as he has been to the Labour leaders that he rebelled against on 283 different occasions in the last 3 years, then you can see what's coming down the line. And for me, Jeremy Corbyn's election, much as I welcome it as the new Labour leader, is a manifestation of the existential crisis that Labour is in. It's not a manifestation of the solution, it's a manifestation of the existential crisis they are in. And I feel for him, because I think the problems the Labour Party will face in the months to come are considerable. But putting that to one side, it's important we in Rise welcome every advance that socialists could make. But Jeremy Corbyn doesn't support independence. He doesn't support more powers for the Scottish Parliament. He doesn't support a second referendum either. And that's important, because I believe it doesn't offer progressive left opinion in Scotland that's so passionate for independence the avenue to get to where it wants to go to. And that's regrettable, but in a way it makes Rise's position and Rise's call for an independent Scotland, an independent socialist Scotland, all the more important. And Rise has its sights set on becoming, as I said before, the left opposition to the SNP and to winning seats at Holyrood next year. We have a tremendous opportunity to get MSPs elected on a programme that is relevant to working class people's lives. We have a tremendous opportunity to get using the platform that Holyrood provides to raise socialist ideas inside the Parliament and outside of the Parliament after a 9-year absence. We can win those elections if we marry our ideas, our socialist ideas, with actions, where we take up campaigns that are relevant to working class people's lives, and we raise our profile and establish our reputation as the active resistance to neoliberalism and those who stand up best for the interests of working class people in Scotland. So our message here this morning from the Marriott Hotel in Glasgow is that the place for socialists in Scotland is in Rise, Scotland's Left Alliance, and we intend to challenge those who seek to represent working class people in Scotland. Our message to working class people, the length and breadth from the tip of Shetland to the bottom of Dumfries, is to say, join us, help us construct that independent socialist Scotland and modern democratic republic we want to see. Thank you very much for your time.